Hello everyone, welcome to Durrett Steak. It's that time of the week where I go over my NFL predictions for this week. In week 3, let's get started with the Thursday night football game tonight between the Patriots and the Jets, who are 6-point favorites. The Patriots have surprisingly held their own in the first two games so far this season. With the Jets still figuring things out and having injuries to overcome on the defensive side, I can see them making this a competitive game. While the Jets' defense has not necessarily lived up to the hype in the first two games of the season, I do feel they could make like one or two big plays that'll help them win the game. I have the Jets winning 16-13. Next, on Sunday, you got Chargers at the Steelers, who are 1.5-point favorites. I was thinking the Chargers would get a big road win here, but quarterback Justin Herbert is definitely not 100%. So if he does play, he might be limited. And as a quarterback, you can't be limited against this great Steelers defense that we've seen so far this year. Also, since the Chargers beat two projected bad teams this season, I need to see them against a more respectable team in order to start buying into the Chargers hype. Steelers win another low-scoring game. I have them winning 14-13. Next, you got the Texans versus the Vikings. Texans 2-point favorites. The Vikings are riding a high wave of momentum after upsetting the 49ers last week. And I can see this being a letdown game. CJ Stroud, I guarantee, will play well. And then I feel Houston's defense won't allow the Vikings to move the ball up and down the field like the Vikings have in the first two games of the season. This is just my hunch pick here, but I would take the Texans to sneak out a road win. I'm winning 21-16. Next, you got the Eagles versus the Saints, who are 2.5-point favorites. The Saints continue to be the surprise team in the league, and I think they can keep it up for at least one more week. For the Eagles, they'll be without star wide receiver A.J. Brown, and the offense on Monday did not look as explosive without him, especially if the Saints defense can contain the run, then it kind of limits things. Then on the offensive side, the Eagles do not bring on the defensive side, the Eagles do not bring pressure often and get to the quarterback a lot. So if you're going to give Derek Carr all day to throw, that is not ideal. And the Eagles secondary is still kind of the weakness of the team. So, Chris Olave and Raheem Shaheed could have big games against them. Maybe the Eagles can keep it close. It's hard to imagine 3 straight blowouts for the Saints, but I have the Saints getting the win here regardless. I have them winning 31-20. Next, you get the Broncos versus the Buccaneers, or 6.5-point favorites. The Broncos offense has been rough the first two games, to say the least, and it could unfortunately continue in week 3. Luckily for them, the Bucs have key injuries on defense, but that was the case last week at Detroit, and they still contain a good Detroit offense. I think it's a good game, but I don't see the Broncos being able to score enough to get the upset. Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield continues his excellent start at Tampa Bay, winning 17-9. Next, you get the Packers versus the Titans, or 2.5-point favorites. This game's interesting. Packers quarterback Malik Willis used to be with the Titans, who essentially discarded him and didn't even want him as a backup. So I can see him wanting a revenge game and knowing how to play his former team and all that. But however, I can also see the Titans knowing how to beat and contain Willis. I think as long as Titans quarterback Will Levis doesn't make bonehead mistakes for the 3rd straight week, and that's a big if, then the Titans could finally get their first win of the season. I know Jordan Love's progressing, but I'm going to assume he will remain out despite that progress. Next, you got the Giants versus the Browns, who are 6.5-point favorites. The Giants have a good pass rush, so since we saw how the Browns looked in week 1 against a great pass rush, I'm curious to see how the Browns offense looks this game. Luckily, they don't have to score a lot to win this game, so I think they do just enough to get the win. I have Cleveland winning 17-10. Next, you got the Bears versus the Colts, who are 1-point favorites. The Bears, after game 2, clearly showed that the offense will take time to figure things out. Luckily, the Colts' defense is a defense you can move the ball up and down the field against. I expect to see some good things from Bears quarterback Caleb Williams, but I think the Colts losing their first 2 games will play way more desperate this time around. Plus, Colts quarterback Andy Richardson kind of plays very hot and cold. Game 1 hot, game 2 cold, so I expect a bounce back game here. And they can avoid the 0-3 start. Indianapolis winning 23-17. Next, you got the Panthers versus the Raiders, who are 5-point favorites. The Raiders better be careful here. They got a big upset over the Ravens last week, and now they face the worst team in the league. With the Panthers making the switch from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, they just better be on their A game. I have the Raiders winning a close game here, 20-16. Next, you got the Dolphins versus the Seahawks, who are 4-point favorites. we've seen backup quarterbacks have success in their first full game. AKA Malik Willis of last week, as an example. Skylar Thompson's capable of getting the win. However, I don't think getting a win on the West Coast and Seattle's home field will be the time Miami gets the win. This game is close and Seattle likes to play close games, but the Seahawks survive once again to remain undefeated, after winning 20-17. Next, you get the Ravens, who are 1.5-point favorites, versus the Cowboys. Since 1979, only 6 teams have made the playoffs after starting the season 0-3. The Ravens don't want to test that statistic there. They need to get this win after their collapse last week. Especially with the Ravens having Buffalo and Cincinnati on the schedule next, it doesn't get any easier. If I'm the Ravens, I do what the Saints did last week. Whether it's quarterback or running back, they need to commit to rushing the ball a lot, so that way it shortens the game, and the Cowboys will have trouble stopping it, as they showed last week they had trouble stopping the run. For the Ravens defense, they can't let CeeDee Lamb go off like they did with Devontae Adams last week. If that happens, the Cowboys win. I think with the Ravens being so desperate to get a win, they'll figure out a way to win in Jerry World, either winning 27-26. Next, you got the Lions, 3-point favorites versus the Cardinals. The Lions have been really weird so far this year. They struggled to put away the Rams and had to run the ball constantly to get that overtime win. Then last week, they continued to pass the ball a lot instead of running it, and they lost. If Goff was in a groove, I would be fine with that. But since he started the season very rusty, the Lions need to run the ball and control the clock if they want to win this game. Arizona wants this game to be a shootout. That's how they're rolling so far this year. They don't mind shootouts. If the Lions allow it to happen, Arizona's going to get the win here. I think since they lost last week, the Lions will make a more concentrated effort to run the ball this time around, and they get the nice road win. They're winning 28-23. Next, you get the 49ers, 7-point favorites versus the Rams. The 49ers did not have good news when they officially put Christian McCaffrey on IR, and now Deebo Samuel is out for a few weeks. Also, George Kittle is banged up, but the good news is that they play a team who's banged up even more than they are. Therefore, they should be able to get a win, and maybe easily based on what the Rams showed last week. I have San Francisco winning 27-6. Next, on Sunday Night Football, I got the Chiefs, 3.5-point favorites versus the Falcons. The Falcons were lucky the Eagles didn't provide much of a pass rush. The Chiefs, I guarantee, will rush Kirk Cousins more often. It won't be like it was in Pittsburgh week 1. It won't be like that much, but Kirk won't have as clean of a pocket, let's just say that. For the Chiefs, they're still figuring things out in offense, and losing running back Isaiah Pacheco will be hard to replace. If they lose this game, not having him will be the reason why. I think without him, quarterback Patrick Mahomes will make more of an effort to try to involve Travis Kelce, who's been non-existent so far, and get others involved, as the Chiefs figure out to get a way to get their first road win this season. Also, while Kirk Cousins, credit to him, did win on Monday Night Football last week, he usually doesn't play well in primetime games. So I have Kansas City winning 19-16. Next, you got 2 Monday Night Football games. You got the Jaguars at the Bills, who are 5-point favorites. The Jaguars are in trouble here. While Buffalo's secondary can't be had, the Jaguars' weapons have not been able to be explosive so far this season. Also, the Jaguars' offensive line has not been great, and the Bills' pass rush is really good. Since the Jaguars are desperate, I feel they'll be competitive. But I would take Buffalo at home to get a big win and to put Jacksonville in panic mode. Next, and last but not least, you got the Commanders versus the Bengals, who are 7.5-point favorites. Once the Bengals go down 0-2, this is where they start to turn things around usually. They essentially did so last week. They just came up short of the win. Washington's defense has been nothing to write home about so far this season, and their offense has been very inconsistent, especially if you could just contain Jalen Daniels and have him not run a lot. Therefore, I would take the Bengals to get their first win this season after winning 20-13. So thank you very much for listening to my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel and tell about me. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.